Tony Adams, and we are speaking in the shadows of an amazing match, and also a match that had some sad news as well. I think sad isn't overstating it or over-egging it. 26-0 Brisbane winning the first match of the final series over Melbourne at Suncorp Stadium. But Tony, a really bad injury.
Yeah, Ryan Papenhuyzen, apparently he's on his way to hospital as we're chatting here. Looks like a compound fracture of the ankle. And we're talking about a guy who spent most of the last 2 years out with a knee injury. So I hate to be the one to say this, but you look at this new injury and you think it's basically a good chance of being career threatening. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it doesn't come to that. But you just wonder how much one guy can take.
How old is he? He's still only young, isn't he? And obviously that means, I know most people wouldn't be thinking about it, but also means we won't be seeing him in the spring playing for Australia either. But he's still only a young fella, isn't he?
Yeah, it'd be about 25, 26, I think. So been around a while and a really nice young guy. So again, I hope he proves me wrong, but I just have my doubts when you get two really, really bad leg injuries in a short space of time, as in he's only been back 2-3 weeks playing NRL. And it capped a terrible night for Melbourne because they had about 4 or 5 guys. They had head knocks, they had all sorts of injuries, and they got well and truly spanked on the scoreboard. So I think it could be the end of the storm for this season, the way the night panned out.
Yeah. Were you surprised, aside from all those things, the way the footy went? Melbourne's execution was pretty poor, and the Broncos are outstanding. I mean, are they a threat to Penrith? Do you think? Do you think they're a bigger chance of winning the comp than they were before the match? You thought before the match?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I thought before the game that either of these two teams were the biggest challenges to the Panthers. I think we can rule out the Storm now. I think their season is gone. They have to win 3 games to win the title. They're going to struggle to field a team next week. To me, I think it's either Penrith or the Broncos, and they're two great teams, two really good teams to watch, play lovely brand of attacking footy. Would be great if we could get them into a grand final, but time will tell on that one.
Yep. Now we're going to talk about the decision to allow Cronulla to play at home in the first week of the finals. We're going to talk about Shane Flanagan signing his son to the Dragons. We're going to talk about what's happening this weekend in Super League. And before I continue any further, we'll just thank a few people who support us on White Line Fever, Patreon. That's the best place, patreon.com/White Line Fever. Phil Rogers, Richard York, and Darcy Lussick. People who support us through Rugby League Nines is Vivek Nayak. People who support us on Rugby League Long Reads, which we're really pumping up at the moment, Jason Beach, Ian Judson, Neville Smith, the great rugby league director and producer, Martin Parr and Peter Wood, and a couple of people who support us on League's back pages, Ryan Hoffman and Peter Stott. I'll have an offer for that a bit later in the program. Yes, the same Ryan Hoffman, who wouldn't be too pleased this evening. So, Tony, one of the games this weekend, I guess we'll do love hate for this one, is the Sharkies playing at Shark Park in the first week of the finals. Do you like it or do you hate it?
Yeah, I've got to say, I'll steal a line out of someone put up on Twitter the other day that there's only one code that could lock 20 or so thousand prospective fans out of its game, and that's rugby league. And that's basically what's happening here. If this game had been at Allianz, which is the Roosters' home ground, so I imagine the Sharks fans would be screaming blue murder there. But if they played it at Homebush, if they played it at Parramatta Stadium, they'd get 30 to 40,000. I think they can only fit about 12, 13,000 in at Shark Park due to works at the moment. So it's the hottest ticket in town, but it's sold out and there's a lot of upset fans. So again, I just think the NRL should have bit the bullet, made the hard decision and said to Cronulla, sorry, you can't host a semi-final when you've got a home ground that can only hold 12, 13,000 fans. But as is often the way with the NRL, they took the soft option.
I hate it, but there's a lack of consistency anyway, isn't there? Because, you know, back in the day, there were 2 grounds that could host finals in Sydney, and that was it. And now, because they've got all this money out of the state governments, you know, there's 3 or 4, and so it's so much of a grey area. And the thing that I hated, you know, 10 years ago was that Newcastle could host a game in week 1 in Newcastle, but St George Illawarra couldn't. They had to go to Acor or Homebush or whatever, and I thought that was unfair as well. So I really think, you know, you've got to know the rules at the start of the season, and if it's Sydney, there should be two grounds, maybe 3 max that can host finals, and that's it. But at the moment, we have home and away finals for everybody because there were complaints a few years ago that, you know, some clubs were disadvantaged, blah blah blah. So we just go around in circles in these arguments, where, you know, and then if they change it to the way we want it to, Tony, in 5 years' time they'll change it back. I mean, that's just the way. That's just the way it is. Now, you've had some. You had a chat to your good mate Coach Sheens during the week. You told me off air. So you can tell us a little bit what he's up to now.
Yeah, well, basically, it's a very sad story, just how it all panned out at the Tigers. He's signed a confidentiality agreement as part of his payout, so I can't say too much of what we said, but I can tell you that they had their end-of-season presentations the other night. He was invited and didn't go, so that just shows you the depth of ill feeling between Tim Sheens and the West Tigers. And when you think of what Tim Sheens has done for rugby league, but specifically for West Tigers, it's a very sad way for this marriage, so to speak, to end. And for those of you who don't remember or would like to reminisce, in 2005, Tim, I call it the unwinnable grand final. They did not have a single state of origin play. You look at the Panthers, they've got about 6 or 7. The Broncos have got about 7 or 8. The West Tigers, 0. Yet they won the comp and won it well and won it playing brilliant football. And I remember walking out of, the stadium at Homebush that night thinking, this will never happen again. It's never happened before. West Tigers winning a comp, but they can never take it away from them. But poor Tim Sheens, I think he really feels like he's been done very badly. He's been made the scapegoat of a club that's basically a rabble, won 2 wooden spoons, and he's now gone. And for all we know, he might be gone for good. And it's the end of a very distinguished career in rugby league.
Tony, you mentioned before the program about Shane and Kyle Flanagan. I guess in a lot of walks of life now, you know, giving members of your family a job is much harder to do than it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, it was common. But professional sports seems to be an outlier or the last kind of bastion of being able to do that. You look at Nathan Cleary and Ivan Cleary and their success they've got. And I think it's kind of considered normal in sport that you would want to play under your dad, and you can say that openly, and your dad can say openly that he'd like to recruit you as a player. It's one of the last places in society where that's kind of not frowned upon. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, we compare them to the Clearys, but it's a very different situation, isn't it? Like Nathan Cleary's probably the best halfback in the game, or certainly in the top 2 or 3. Kyle Flanagan, he's been at 3 clubs, and I think it's fair to say he hasn't set the world on fire at any of them. And yet his dad makes him a priority signing at the Dragons, who've been struggling anyway. And Kyle's preferred position, halfback, they've got Ben Hunt, who's probably in the top half dozen halfbacks in the game. And I think every game the Dragons won this year was courtesy of Ben Hunt. So it's a little bit odd, and I think it didn't surprise anyone, as you say. But if I was a Dragons fan, I'd just be a little bit peeved. I think, the Dragons are a club renowned for keeping family connections, and it hasn't served them well over the years, let's put it that way. And it's sort of not a great start to the Shane Flanagan era as far as I'm concerned.
Now, Tony, here's one without notice. I'm doing a column afterwards about rugby league expressions and sayings which have either died or are on the way out. And I know that you're a veteran of more years in the press box than me. We used to say on the burst when I used to play footy very badly and without courage. I used to actually stand behind the dummy half. If you're a forward and you were going to take it up for a hit up, you'd actually shout at the dummy half, on the burst, on the burst. So tell me, what are some expressions that you miss that you don't hear anymore? Can you think of any?
You're talking about in the press box or
Press
on the
box,
field?
players, fans, anything that people don't say anymore. For instance, is there a blind side anymore? I never hear any commentators talk about a blind side anymore. It's the short side.
Yeah, that's true.
Any others?
And we used to have centre combinations. Well, we don't have centre combinations anymore. And as a kid, I was a mad Roosters fan, and John Brass and Mark Harris, they just played breathtaking football together because Brass had the best hands of any centre of his era. Harris was probably the most powerful ball runner of his time. They scored or set up so many tries in that Roosters team that won consecutive comps in the mid-70s. Now centres aren't allowed to play alongside each other. So that's one saying that's certainly gone out the window. I can reveal one I used to use in the press box that used to get a few laughs. I used to say, "Up here with us." As in,
Didn't you get that off Chippy though? Didn't you get that off Chippy? You stole. That's why you were called Clark, because you used to use Chippy's catchphrases when he wasn't there.
Well, I think we all stole the odd line from the great Peter Flinkos, I should say, and "Up here with us" was a classic one. Probably a few of the others we can't mention because they're now politically incorrect in the world we live in, but they were considered quite funny at the time.
Well, I mean, the classic one that came up on social media today was "looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane," which is horribly sexist. But it was very, very, very common back then. But Chippy used to love, it was part of his kind of persona to drop in these obscure phrases and words like a modicum of difficulty and the imprimatur and words like that. He'd drop them into the middle of sentences. And, you know, he used to be "up here with us" and "get out the hook" and all those sort of things as well. So, so I think it'll be a fun story to write. Everyone, I've got some great engagement on that. I'm going to try and pick the top 10 dying or dead rugby league expressions. You can read that on Long Reads. Now, for League's back pages, very quickly, because I don't want to bore Tony with the plug, but about 5 years ago, I saw this website called Rock's Back Pages, right? And it's all the music journalists send in all their stories, and people pay to read it. And if you've got 50 stories up there, then you get a share of the business. You get a share of the subscriptions. Not only that, but libraries use it to research, and they act as an agent. So that if someone dies, if David Bowie dies, they'll actually sell your David Bowie story to the paper and give you most of the money. So really good setup. So I have set up League's back pages, right? But anyway, I have set up League's back pages. It's too expensive because Substack is $30 minimum a year. So I'm going to give 66% off. So it's only $10 for the whole year for League's back pages. And the link will be in the show notes. The big story over here, Tony, which is something we can't talk about much, is the owner of Featherstone, Mark Campbell, being charged in relation to an assault. And that's it, right? Because of sub judice, we can't talk about it anymore. We can't say any more about it. But it certainly dwarfs everything else that's happening in rugby league in Britain at the moment, as far as I can see anyway. So we'll just follow it. We can't comment on it. We can't say any more. Okay, Tony, the final series continues tomorrow. Penrith and the Warriors, Sean Johnson out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, with Sean Johnson in, I thought the Warriors were a chance of really challenging Penrith, but without him playing at Penrith, I think the Panthers comfortably by 10 to 12 points.
And Cronulla, as we just discussed, at home, as we just discussed, to the Roosters.
Yeah, to me, this is the hardest game of the round. There's very little between them. It's an elimination game. When in these situations, I go to the home team. They get the 50-50 calls. It's just the nature of the beast. So Sharks in a close one.
And Newcastle and Canberra.
Yeah, well, it takes a brave man to tip against Newcastle the way they're going. I think they're up to 8 straight. And Kalen Ponga playing, Bradman Best playing out of his skin. They're playing great footy, the Knights. The Raiders, very patchy, even though they're in the finals. Knights fairly comfortably, 18-20 even.
Okay, now before we do our Super League tips, interesting note, and this is the reason we do the show on Thursday normally, is because basically the whole round in Super League is played on Friday nights. And the reason that happens is the clubs like the money, they like the corporate money. So next year, every game is going to be covered professionally, which means they could have a bunker over here, Tony. But what's stopping them from having a bunker? The fact that there's 4 or 5 games on at once on a Friday night, you can't have 4 bunkers. So, so the clubs all complain that, we want refereeing consistency, blah, 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 blah. But when they get given the choice between better officiating and losing money from corporates on a Friday night, which way do you think they'll go?
Yeah, they'll go with the money.
They'll keep the refereeing stuff-ups. I think they'll choose the refereeing stuff-ups. So anyway, that means that I'll have to edit this as immediately we finish streaming, because otherwise we're not going to get it up in time for tonight's matches. So with that, Tony, let's go through tonight's and indeed the weekend's matches in Super League.
Okay, well, first of all, we've got Wakefield hosting Catalan.
Catalans are hit a bit of a wall. I reckon this is a great opportunity for them to run themselves back into form. Catalans.
Okay. Huddersfield, Hull KR.
Great game, because Hull KR, very strong team. Recent scalps included the Dragons. And finally, Huddersfield, maybe they're starting to turn the corner, probably too late. So the fact that it's at Huddersfield means it's going to be a real tough assignment for Willie Peters' men. I think they come away with the 2 points, but in a close one.
Okay. Castleford against Hull FC.
Casa having a poor season, Hull FC. Do I need to say any more?
Fair enough. St Helens hot favourites against Lee. Can they get it done?
Yeah, it's a big game, isn't it? Because St Helens are world champs, don't forget. But they haven't had it all their own way this year. Lee have had a stellar season, but there was a bit of a hangover, most literally and figuratively perhaps, after the Challenge Cup final. If they were to go away to Saints and win, they'd certainly be back on the horse. I think they'll get 1 foot in the stirrup, but I don't think they'll get right on the horse. I think Saints will win that one.
Okay, then we got Leeds Rhinos against the Wigan Warriors.
Looking forward to that one on television at 2:45. I think Wigan are in pretty fearsome form at the moment. Wigan.
Okay, and lastly, Salford against my team, the Warrington Wolves.
Yeah, I can't watch this because I'm going to go to London Broncos. I think with that game, it's a big test to Warrington, who had a massive win last week. Do they continue, or they get found out? Warrington away.
Yeah. While we're on that, Steve, bit of news for both hemispheres. Did you get a story over there? A bit of a crazy story that there was a talk of a coaching swap between Jason Demetrio and Sam Burgess?
Yes, I did. Yes, I saw that.
Yes.
I was going to ask you about
we had the same story here, and I checked it out, and it's absolute fantasy, I've been told. So we can scrub that one.
It's creative. So look, all the games in the NRL playoffs this weekend are sold out, so everyone's enjoying their footy. How about that, Tony? I just saw the centre spread of the Courier Mail on the television. What time is it there? So I was like, they've already got it laid out.
10:30 at night.
10:30. What happened to? I mean, that's just running copy already on the page with live photos, and it's on the television. I mean, well, wonders never cease. Hopefully that means the journo who wrote it's already in the pub, but somehow I doubt it. So that's it for this week. White Line Fever kicks on YouTube and video, and this is also the Molly and Maskey audio podcast. Wherever you're watching or listening, make sure you like, subscribe, and please share. Tell everyone about the show. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully we're getting better at this. And we'll see you next week, week 2 of the NRL semis. Tony, good night.
Yeah. And just to emphasize, guys, when we say subscribe, people probably think money, but it's free. Just click on the little subscribe button.
Good on you. See you, everybody. Enjoy your footy this weekend.
See ya.